going to do a quick rundown of everything I did like about this bike and everything I didn't like about this bike on my UK tour, because I think that's quite important actually. Having bought this bike with the intention is the driver. Interesting. Yeah, given that I bought this bike with the intention of doing a few sort of tours and stuff, be interesting to see, have a reflection on what works and what doesn't work. At the minute, all I've done to this bike is add this top screen, which I'm sure everyone will be sitting there going, fucking hell, remove it, it's in the way, I can't see. And that did go through my mind when on my trip, thinking, oh, it's going to block all the view, but it's added a lot to my comfort, honestly. It meant that I haven't really had to wear earplugs, because it's just deflected all of that wind away from my helmet. Don't get me wrong, I could feel it a little bit, and I probably should have still worn it. This is a hill, 12%. This wouldn't even get signposted in the Peak District. This screen has been really, really good. As I said, it's deflected a lot of the wind away. It has had the con of removing some of that wind to keep me cool. So ideally, I should take it off every now and then, but it's a pros and cons. It keeps the wind off, but sometimes you want that wind to keep you warm, to keep you cool, sorry. What else have I done? I've got a little USB socket here just to charge my phone. That's been working fine. That's into a Oxford junction box, which is fine, is working absolutely as intended. Now, I was under the assumption that it would only turn on when the engine specifically was on and not the ignition. At the minute, it turns on with the ignition. Now, that's not a massive issue because I'm not sitting there with the ignition on for long periods of time. However, it's something to note. If you are, it's going to kill your battery and you've got your phone plugged in. I've obviously got these Oxford heated grips. Now, it's been really hot this week. There has been a couple of occasions up north when I've had to turn them on because it's been a little bit chilly, and it's been just to bring a bit of comfort back. They've done the job excellently, and they're obviously really nice to sort of change up and down. If you go into a varied climate, it's going to be cold. Just slap a pair of these on and they work. They do the job. They keep your hands warm. I've obviously got the full Honda supplied CBF1000 luggage, so the both the panniers and the top box absolutely fine. We've managed to fit 2 big rucksacks in each of the panniers for all of my stuff, clothing, and my partner's clothing and everything. The top box has held basically all the other little bits that we want quick access to and we don't want to go rummaging through the bags for. Now this is sort of like jumpers, my spare pair of shoes that we can just flip on if we want to go for a walk just off the bike somewhere, we can do. Toolkit, puncture repair kit, the stuff that we need quick access to. It's much easier to get into that top one compared to the panniers. They work brilliantly. We've got enough stuff in. It's been a tight squeeze, but we've made it work. Just bear in mind, if you want to go, if we wanted to go shopping before hitting the accommodation, we wouldn't have been able to. There's just no room left. It's fully utilised. Partner's got, I think, a Oxford Air cushion seat. She said it was pretty good. I think she was slightly complaining of a sore bottom for a while. I don't know how much of that has been alleviated by... God. Go. Fucking hell. Yeah, the first few times she'd been out without the pillow, she did say it was quite uncomfortable. That might be personal opinion. She might just not be used to being on a bike. You know, we don't know. Cushion may have helped, may not have helped, but that was about £45 in it. You know, if it helped a bit, then for a week's worth, sod it. So that's everything that I have changed. Obviously, I've got the new front brakes on. They've been really good. Dual braking means I can split that braking between everything, and I get a good level of breakage between both sets, which is actually really helpful, I think, going down a lot of the hills, because this bike does like to continue accelerating downhill in first gear in some places. So you kind of have to use brakes, which really ideally you shouldn't do on a long downhill stretch, but you have to on this. So at least then it's going to split all of that braking force between your front and your back to try and stop some of that overheating, because it will do. If you hold your brakes all the way down, you'll just toast it. Right, seating position. Don't ask me why I have this seat on the lowest position. This does come with free position for the front seat. Rear seat is non-adjustable. The front seat is. Now, I've been relatively comfortable. However, on this bike, I did not get it on my SV, but on this, I get some absolutely awful back pain after an hour or so. And that back pain does not disappear until quite a few hours after being off the bike. Typically after I wake up the following morning, dependent on whatever bed that I'm sleeping on. I don't know why. I haven't been able to figure it out. I've changed everything. I've changed, you know, I've took off the bar risers that were on this. That didn't help. I've changed the seat height. That didn't help. I've left it on the lowest just to give me a little bit more bend in the legs when stopping. Now, I don't know whether actually I'd be better off putting it on to like the middle or the higher one. You know, I've got quite long legs. I'm 6'1" I fucking hate this junction. Can't bloody see. Yeah, whether I would have been better off doing that. Trial and error, really. That's Morgan there. So yeah, that might have contributed to it, I don't know. That's probably one of my main cons to this bike, is that for me personally, I'm not particularly comfortable. It's nice being able to move between a bit more upright, or I can sit further back in the seat and duck down, which honestly is really nice with the higher screen, because you just don't get any wind on you at all. So when I'm doing long motorway stretches, if I want just a bit of respite, I can do. Apart from that, it's not been too bad. I do get some pain in the wrists. I do get some pain in my thumbs. I think we might just need to fiddle around with where these levers are located, because it's just stretching my hand a bit too much. Maybe bring them in a little bit, I'm not sure. It's tough to figure out. I didn't have any issues on the SV, everything was kind of bang on for me and it was quite comfortable, but here we're having a few teething issues. Apart from that, it's been really good. It's got enough power, you know, it's got buckets of torque. You can be quite lazy with the gears in normal riding. You don't have that sort of incessant need to drop down the gear if you want to, you know, accelerate quite quickly. You can get away with it even in sort of 6th gear. Oh god. And you often forget what gear you're in because it's just got torque everywhere. Mind, yes, 1000cc, it's going to have torque. But it's just quite nice. Doing sort of 70 Indicated 70 is about 65 on this bike, so I have to be doing above 70 to get a GPS 70. It's sitting at about 4.5 revs in 6th gear. It's quite comfortable, it's not too noisy. You know, it's doing the job. I want to overtake this person because they're not going very fast. Yes, and obviously it's 1000cc, so we can do stuff like that. So yeah. I think one of the other bad things about this is the suspension isn't brilliant. My God, any bump you feel, and I think with a passenger and when you're fully loaded, you are looking for a bit more preload. It's still a little bit too low on the rear. That's quite a common complaint. So I think a lot of people put a new rear shock on. Try and sort that out, and it's, you know, it does change the bike allegedly. It's just very expensive. You're looking at about 500 quid. I can't remember who makes the shock. It was on the top of my head at some point. Yeah, that comes with a remote adjust, so you don't have to sit there underneath with a C-spanner and move that, which is a pain in the arse. It's all hydraulic, which is a beautiful. Yeah, overall, I can't, you know, yes, there's a few niggle points which I'd love to improve and rectify for the next one. You know, we'd also look at how we actually plan the trip, but that's not down to the bike. Obviously, if it's a bit more comfortable, maybe we'd go a bit longer, you know, but we didn't know, but we planned accordingly. You know, we didn't know if it would be comfortable, so we planned in a stop every hour just to get off the bike and stretch the legs. The lights are good, however, I forgot to adjust them for the pillion and the weight, which meant the high beam was actually firing up into the sky, which obviously not good. So that made it quite useless last night, which is the only time I actually had to use the lights to illuminate. As it was quite late when we got in. But apart from that, it doesn't really matter. I don't think the dips were too bad. I didn't get any sort of known complaints from people passing, but yeah, overall, been a good bike. You know, fuel consumption has been quite high. I think we've spent well over 100, 120 quid. Lovely bit of road there. So yeah, but we didn't care. Honestly, it was going to use fuel. We knew about it. We were just chucking it in every opportunity. That's a good point, actually. This fuel gauge is wank. Absolutely horrendous. Because it's only like a depth sensor, and that this tank obviously isn't uniform as it drains. when you first, fill it and it's, right up to the brim, it shows, obviously way past full, and that sits around for ages. Shut up, Siri. Why is that? Why did that pop up? So that's all good, and the first sort of quarter of the tank sticks around for a while, or I should say, once it gets past that first line next to the F, it starts dropping quicker, and then when you get to half the tank, it's rapidly draining. So bear that in mind if you've got one of these Mark 1s. I think the Mark 2 is digital. I don't know how that one works, but this one has that issue and it's annoying. However, again, I was aware it was just a case of at every opportunity, and I mean basically every opportunity, when it gets remotely near half the tank, fill it up. Especially if you're going somewhere remote and you're not going to have the opportunity to chuck it in if it starts getting low, keep it brimmed. Because we're only getting about 100 and so miles between fill-ups on this, so it's a bit of a pain. But that's just what we had to do. So yeah, we've used a lot of fuel. I don't know the actual stats on how much miles we've covered, but if I figure it out, I'll pop it up somewhere on screen. But apart from that, the bike's been absolutely faultless in terms of performance. It's just chewed through everything. It's done uphills, it's done twisties, it's done long sections of motorway. Absolutely everything I've chucked at it, it's coped with, as you would expect. It is an older bike. It's a 2008. That's probably not that old, but it is getting on a bit. Well, I'm indicating. It's an old Honda. Everyone says old Hondas are the best Hondas. Ooh. They just deal with it, and they work. And I have to agree at the minute. This is currently on 8,455 miles. I've got no idea when I'll have to have a look when I look back at my footage, and I'll see when the thing was, and I'll be able to work out how many miles we've done. But yeah, it's just worked. It's been phenomenal. Apart from all the little gripes with ergonomics and stuff, I can probably figure that out. Normally you can just about change ergonomics on a bike and get it to do what you want it to do. So yeah, there's a few sort of pros and cons and a bit of a post-trip review of the bike. Hope you all enjoy, and catch you in the next one.